Hello and welcome to my Yugioh channel. In today's episode we'll be looking at cards which were introduced within the 9th episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, but have yet to have like an official quote-unquote release. The first card is Tribalite King. It's a level 2 water aqua effect monster with 400 attack and 300 defense. The requirement and the effect is ineligible, so we can't read it, but I'm assuming it will have an effect considering that it has mentioned that here. The next card is called Yugioh, which is a level 3 water aqua normal monster. It has 0 attack and 1500 defense. That, in terms of a monster, is actually quite powerful for defense stats, considering we don't have that many monsters in the game, especially for a level 3. The next card is Stegoceratops. It's a level 2 Earth Dinosaur normal monster with 700 attack and 1100 defense. It's used by that new character that I mentioned, who is kind of like the president of his own fossil club / science-based club. So that's kind of why it's put there. The next card is Mysterious Sea. Its Japanese name is quite interesting as well. It's called Shin Pi no Yumi. So actually it might have some interactions with Yumi, potentially. The requirement is you can activate if you control no monsters, and the effect is to special summon 3 monsters which are level 4 or lower water attribute from your hand face up, then you can draw 1 card. That, as an effect, isn't actually that good. With how Rush Duels work, where you can actually just normal summon a mass number of monsters, however many you like, that you have in your hand, provided that they're actually lower than level 5, before obviously tributing, this isn't really that effective. The +1 in the draw really isn't much to consider as well, because you're just replacing this card you've got with another card, so it's got no relevance to it. The next card is Miraculous Co-Evolution. It's a normal spell card with the requirement activate by sending 1 face-up monster level 5 or higher dinosaur type you control to the graveyard, and the effect is special summon 1 monster, it has to be a dinosaur type, from your hand to the field face up, and until the end of the turn that monster gains 100 attack times the level of the monster sent to the graveyard for the requirement of this effect. So this is actually quite decent. You've got a couple of dinosaur types out there. You've got that Super King Rex, which I think is either a level 7 or a level 8, and you've got Megatala as well. So potentially you're increasing another monster you've got by between 600 and 800 attack. For the time being, that kind of stat boost is quite good. There are better. Seven Roads Magician is able to increase its own attack by 200 times the number of different attributes in the graveyard, so that's one way of being better, but this is at least consistent for what the deck wants to do. We actually have a trap version of Ultra Evolution. Its requirement is you can activate when your opponent normal summons a monster. It must be level 7 or higher, and the effect is choose 1 monster, it must be a dinosaur type, on your field. Until the end of this turn it gains 1500 attack. During this turn that monster cannot be destroyed by the opponent's effects. So this card is actually good for responding to your opponent's plays depending on what they're doing. The attack stat boost is really good. It reminds me a bit of... Do you remember a card called Rising Energy? It's a trap card which basically does the same. It gives it a monster of yours 1500 attack, but it does require a discard cost. This is a bit of an issue though, because it does require your opponent to have normal summoned a level 7 or higher monster, and it has to be activated on the normal summon as opposed to when your opponent says, for example, attack, which means it kind of eliminates the surprise factor of it. It does have the benefit though of at least protecting your monster from effects, and at that point with the attack gain I don't think anything is going to try and battle it for that time. The next card is the Pinnacle of Predatory Evolution. It's a normal trap card. The requirement is you can activate if there is a face-up monster, it must be a dinosaur type, on your field when a card on your field is sent to the graveyard during the opponent's turn. And the effect is, choose one monster dinosaur type on your field. During this turn, while the monster is on your field, your opponent's monsters must attack that monster. So it's one that actually forces attacks one way or the other. This is similar to something like Battlemania, but actually a little bit worse. It does have the benefit, of course, if you've put something, say for example, in defense mode and your opponent's decided to just go after that. Of course, you'll lose that card, and then you're able to either prevent your opponent from attacking because they might not want to attack into your strongest monster, or at least you have a choice then to kind of protect any other cards you have on the field. The downside of this is it's incredibly specific, and it's only useful within the dinosaur type. It cannot be used by other types because it relies on that type specifically, and isn't generic enough to be viable. It's okay for the time being, but I can see it easily being displaced a bit later on. The next card we have is Triple. It's a normal spell card, and it's one of the new cards used by Yugioh. Its requirement is activate by returning 3 Bottle from your graveyard to the deck, and then you can draw 3 cards. You can think of it a little bit like a mini Pot of Avarice, but it's very specific to to these new versions of Kuriboh. I don't even want to try and pronounce the name, it's just awful. These cards aren't particularly useful anyway, so even if you send them, back to the deck, they're not really going to do anything for you. Although drawing 2 cards is okay because you're still doing the +1. But it does require you to exactly return the 3 cards, which is just a bit too specific for it. And the final card is Diastrophism. It's a normal spell card, and the requirement is, if there is a face-up monster level 7 or higher spellcaster type on your field, you can send one monster, it has to be an Earth attribute, from your hand to the graveyard. The effect is, choose one face-up monster on your opponent's field. Until the end of the turn, it loses attack equal to the attack of the monster with the highest printed attack in your graveyard. The good side of this card is actually this is decent. I actually have to say I like this card. Out of most of the cards within the series, I have not liked the design of the card. This is something that's good. At the moment, I don't think Yugioh has anything other than his 7 Rogues Magician who can use this in response, so we have to kind of wait, and obviously he will be getting more spellcaster support. It's just a given, that's what he's doing. He's using spellcasters, and even though he only has the 7 Rogues Magician, there will be more support further down the line. He does have Earth monsters, so provided you can discard one, even it just has to be an Earth attribute anyway, so you can just run certain things. And actually, it's not a case of just whatever monster you send, you reduce your opponent's monster's attack by. It's actually whatever you have with the strongest attack in your graveyard. If you've got a very strong monster, say a 2500 attack monster, in your graveyard, you might be able to zero out your opponent's attack points and be able to run over them to either win the duel or to cause them significant life point loss. I think out of the cards, this is my favourite from this episode. Hopefully they get introduced relatively soon within the Rush Duels series. What do you think of the cards? Is there anything in particular you like? What's your least favourite card? And whatever you think, leave your comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.